In Britain, they do not like to remember the event that hit not only the reputation of the empire, but also its economy. In 1775, the American War of Independence began, and the mother country had a hard time in it. Firstly, communications are very stretched. Secondly, every now and then military conflicts with neighbors, these same communications, were piling up. So in 1779, even with Spain, hostilities had to begin, and there France once again arrived in time. And yet, actions on land, in the New World, were considered priority. But there it was required to regularly send equipment and troops. Without them, the colonists did not pacify, and here it seems like the landing on the islands is about to take place. So the empire's efforts had to be carefully dosed. In general, the road by sea was considered relatively safe, since the means of observation and detection in that era were primitive. Roughly speaking, a man sat on the mast and said what he saw, and the risk of detection by the enemy of the convoy always existed, but the risk of landing on the English coast was more worried about the Admiralty. Therefore, it was decided that it was safe enough to send a large caravan with little or no protection to America, keep the safeguards off their native shores, just in case. And this decision was made in 1780. Moreover, according to the latest data, the combined Spanish-French squadron just left for Brest to repair and replenish supplies. On this, the Lords somehow calmed down and shifted the focus of close attention. They began to prepare to send a massive cargo to help the expeditionary force to America. As a result, they missed the enemy's exit to the sea, and although locators had not yet been invented at that time, the seafarers had already learned the zones of constant winds by heart. That is why the common intercontinental routes were familiar to everyone, and traveling by circuitous routes threatened either with a collapse or a shortage of food due to the whims of EOL's subordinates. In a word, a rather large caravan was prepared in England, which was given only one battleship of the third rank, 74 guns, and 2 frigates, 36 guns each, for protection. True, especially for such an occasion, they rented 5 vessels of the East India Company, from 28 to 32 guns on each, famous for their seaworthiness and good weapons. Their teams were distinguished by cockiness and were closer to the pirates. Well, the merchants carried some kind of artillery. There were 63 pennants in total, which carried a whole infantry regiment and a lot of equipment, weapons, tents, harness, artillery supplies, food. In addition, by the same opportunity, they decided to send the treasury to feed the administration and garrisons. To the misfortune of the British, a fleet consisting of 31 battleships and 6 frigates came out to intercept them. The weakest carried 36 cannons, and the bulk, twice as many. The famous 120-gunner Santissima Trinidad was also listed as the flagship, the equal of which simply could not be found at that time in the whole world. True, 2 admirals of very respectable years commanded the combined forces, 69 and 73 years old. Moreover, the Spaniard was the eldest in both age and rank, and the French opposed the subordination, considering it too ancient. Their representative is a whole 4 years younger. The old man was in no hurry and acted carefully. His squadron discovered the enemy at 1 in the morning on August 9, 1780, but did not immediately rush into battle, because at first it was assumed that such a colossus should be guarded by shoals of battleships. Instead, the experienced Spaniard Luis de Cordova, that was the name of the elderly admiral, changed the route in such a way as to get as close to the enemy as possible. It was not yet customary to fight at sea in the dark. In addition, there was thick fog, further worsening visibility. To mislead the enemy, the Spaniards extinguished all navigation lights on their ships. Navigation illumination remained only on the flagship, which worked perfectly. In the darkness, only 5 merchants and 2 frigates held out behind the British flagship. The rest of the convoy clung to the lights of the Santissima Trinidad and by morning thoroughly mixed with the Spaniards. At 4:15 a.m. on August 9, it suddenly became clear that the situation of the British was terrible. Most of the caravan surrendered without firing a shot. A few ships tried to squirm, but they were quickly subdued by volleys from the hulks of the line. Moreover, they did not drown anyone, but tried to hit on the nose or steering wheel, in order to deprive them of their progress. The British flagship tried to snarl, but quickly realized that his efforts were simply ridiculous, and taking advantage of the advantageous position, away from the general dump, he managed to slip away along with the wards, who kept him at night. The Spaniards did not particularly interfere. They knocked down more densely what was crammed into snares in the night's confusion. All 5 East Indians remained on the Spanish side. Later they will be converted into frigates. Having collected prizes and not even assessing the scale of production, the number of trophies was already impressive. 55 ships. The Spaniards left for Cadiz, where they have already examined in detail the captured and marveled again. 3,144 prisoners, some ships with military equipment for £600,000 and a treasury and gold bars in coins. This one is exactly 1 million. In a word, for the British it was a catastrophe that even the tragedy of the PQ-17 caravan, so often commemorated in the second half of the 20th century, did not surpass in scale. The debacle at Cape Santa Maria shook up the economy of England. In addition to the losses of the treasury, it is worth mentioning the massive ruin of insurance companies, managed to collect insurance in the amount of only 1.2 million, and even then at the cost of destroying an entire segment of the market. So the British do not like to commemorate August 9, 1780 even today, although they remember this event well. In fact, the Lords of the Admiralty were to blame for what happened. They neglected intelligence and violated a lot of basic rules for organizing such events. But Captain John Mutry, who commanded the escort forces, was blamed. True, he was not shot or imprisoned, but removed from command. However, even this contemporaries then considered excessive severity. The famous phrase "he was punished not for his mistakes, but for the size of his misfortune" appeared in the London Encyclopedia in 1829, and since then it has been wandering around all publications as an illustration of the consequences. In fairness, it should be noted that the captain's disgrace lasted a year, and then he was reinstated in rank and the ship was entrusted. So the insurers and the reputation of the Lady of the Seas suffered the most. The rest got off lightly. Even the captured Spaniards treated them surprisingly gently and attentively. Although most researchers believe that the reason for the generosity of the Spaniards lies in the behavior of Admiral Rodney, on January 8 of the same 1780, who committed a robbery of Spanish merchants on a smaller scale near Cape Finisterre. The admiral then treated the prisoners well, which the Spaniards did not forget, and on occasion they repaid the same coin. Somewhere even with greater generosity. Rodney's victory is 3 times more modest, if you count by tonnage.